Our guest this week, Menno Holterman, a Dutch entrepreneur and investor. He was one of the founders of the annual International Water Week in Amsterdam. He is the chairman of the Njihuis Saur Industries and is a great advocate for water resources, a growing concern worldwide, particularly in Africa. I met him in Dubai to discuss the rising risks of scarcity and the solutions at hand. Hello, Menno Holterman. Welcome to Initiative Africa. You are the Chief Executive Officer, Njihuis Saur Industries. I'd like to start with a global overview of water scarcity. Cities in the world as well as rural areas face elevated risks if sufficient water for different uses and ecosystems is no longer available. What is at stake today around the world? How are the water resources distributed in the world?
So thank you very much, Asha. It's a question which probably deserves an answer from different angles. First of all, we see that water indeed is becoming scarce, not in the typical areas where a lot of people know about, in for example, Ethiopia, but we see everywhere around the equator today that there's a shortage of water or too much water. So we see a lot of floods. Devastating floods, also recently in Pakistan. And at the same time we see, sometimes even a couple of weeks later, that drought is kicking in. And droughts for a long time are really impacting the social and the economical life of people. Almost 70% of the world population is going to live in cities according to the United Nations. Many of these cities are already crowded. With the increasing welfare, people like to have access to a lot of luxury goods, food, beverage, air conditioning, and that all is driving up the demand for clean water around the world.
Could you tell us about the Saur activities in Africa?
We have different types of projects. Industrial end users, food and beverage producers, for example, they are very much focusing on meeting regulations and reusing water as much as possible. So we see an important trend that industrial clients are now choosing for water reuse as a mandatory solution in new factories, in new plants they are investing in Africa. Second, we do see that renewable energy is becoming important. Due to the very high energy prices, people start to realize that other sources of energy are important. So besides solar, which of course is being successfully applied in this part of the world, also biogas, recovery basically of waste streams from water are ultimately becoming an important source. We just have been awarded a very big contract in Southern Africa where we are going to help industrial end users to basically take their organic waste, convert it into biogas, so turn it into electricity, into power, as well as the recovery of important raw materials like fertilizer. That electricity is being fed back to those clients. So we're closing the water and energy loop by trying to recover as much as possible value out of their wastewater streams. North Africa, for example in Egypt, we are helping the government in Port Said, for example, in the port where domestic water and industrial water is being mixed. To not only make sure there is sufficient treatment available, but also to avoid that untreated effluent is ultimately ending up as irrigation water for the farmers near to the Lake Manzala. So there, to design, build, operate and maintain a proper infrastructure, which for the next 25 years is basically turning the wastewater treatment, which traditionally is an end-of-pipe solution, into a resource recovery facility where we are recovering water which is safe to be used for irrigation, as well as resources which can be used to help the farmers growing their crops.
Water scarcity will increase as the climate continues to change. How can we tackle this issue?
It's a big challenge, of course, but also it's good to know for everybody that there are a lot of solutions already available. So for us, it's really understanding the problem and trying to develop together with the client sustainable and resilient solutions, which very often also means that customers need to change or optimize some of their processes and really need to look at utilizing every drop of water. Every drop of water counts. Collecting rainwater, reusing effluent, so treated wastewater, as cooling water or in other industrial processes, in order to avoid that the water consumption is going to become too high. So everywhere we see today, also in Africa, that clients are starting to implement sustainability targets, even net zero targets, where they are trying to basically develop a closed loop very near to their facility, very near to their city, in order to make sure that they are becoming self-sufficient in the future. And of course, in places like Dubai, where there are no rivers, there you have to look at other water sources. So desalination here in the region became an alternative source of water.
And in Africa, of course, we're speaking about water scarcity, but also there's the fact that there's a lack of infrastructure for water treatment. Is that also one of the main challenges here in this region?
Yeah, so unfortunately what we see is that the demand is growing, as we were just discussing. At the same time, infrastructure investments require long-term funding, and that is what a lot of countries and cities and municipalities are lacking. And this is here two important developments. First of all, we see in different countries now a better environment to implement public-private partnerships. And the private sector here is really in a great opportunity to take a leading role here. Not only in providing the funding, but combining the funding with proper design, build, finance, operate and maintain. But then of course you also need to make sure that you have access to state-of-the-art infrastructure, using the right pipes, using all kinds of meters and sensors to make sure that you can control and optimize the flow, that you're not losing water, and that again, at all the points where either you have access to the water or where the water is being used, that we help our customers to reduce their water consumption and at the same time make more efficient use of that drop of water against the lowest, of course, possible cost.
For years, the water crisis has exacerbated conflicts and political tensions. What are your views as a water expert in the private sector?
I think we really have to understand that water scarcity, droughts, are resulting ultimately in people having to make a choice about staying or leaving. And that is what people today are also doing. And we see that some of the crises here in the region, or even the wars, originally have started and have accelerated due to the fact that people for a very long time could not sustain droughts, and that people had to look for safer places to have access to water and to food, which is also causing migration. So it's a topic where ultimately, if we want to make sure that people will stay and can live in the natural environment where they are born, that we need to provide them access to clean and affordable water. That is really where it all starts. On top of that, then you can develop economical activities which also will generate jobs and making sure that people can develop a decent life, develop welfare, and that ultimately is boosting, let's say, the economies.
So if we can focus a little bit more on what's happening between Egypt and Ethiopia, you know, a lot of tension there, and we see that this can really put the populations at risk. Can the private sector help in this kind of conflict resolution? And if yes, how?
I think what is very important is that every drop of water counts. So with technology today, with digital, combining the two, we are able to basically help people identifying what is the safe place to stay, where is water going to be available, where to use it in the most efficient way. And that's an area where us as a corporate are really trying to contribute. Education is very important because we really need to understand that access to clean water, or that we cannot waste water. That water is a very valuable source. No water, no life. And that also means we need to take care of water. We need to help valuing water. And in this political and sometimes difficult discussion, we need to understand that water will not stop at the border. A lot of underground aquifers are part of, are underneath 2 or 3 different countries. So stopping water in order to take advantage of it is causing disruption, could risk or could cause floods or droughts somewhere downstream. So I think humanity and governments, they need to have a continuous dialogue in order to make sure that they use water in the most efficient and effective way. And that means that an integrated view, policy, collaboration between nationalities, between all the different stakeholders is necessary to ultimately do what's best for. And there the private sector is playing a very important role, but we cannot do it on our own. So public-private partnerships are absolutely critical.
And of course, we cannot talk about water transition without talking about the energy transition. How are both linked, and how are players like yourselves working for a more sustainable transition?
Water and energy are absolutely linked. Like water, energy, food actually are also linked very much together. But water and energy, of course, this year became very important due to the increase of the energy prices. Also, the price of water is going up in many places. So we as sector are challenged to help reducing the life cycle cost, the actual cost to produce a cubic meter of water or to treat a cubic meter of water. So that means for us internally, as we are also an operator of thousands of different water treatment plants, that we have to reduce the energy consumption. So we're using a lot of technology and digital tools in order to optimize the energy use, and at the same time try to generate as much as possible energy from the different waste sources which are basically coming out of our water infrastructure. So water and energy are linked and can only be solved in an integrated approach. And that is where we offer a lot of different solutions to our clients, which we are implementing everywhere around the world.
Water has a role to play when it comes to food security. What are players like yourselves doing in that field?
Agriculture, of course, is playing a very important role. And more than 70% of the fresh water in the world is being used for agricultural purposes. So first of all, we need to help the agricultural sector to use that water as efficient as possible. And all kind of new technologies, different technologies are already applied or will be applied in the coming years to basically use water in a very precise way. GPS data, water data, soil data are connected in order to optimize the yield, the crops, the quality of the crops. We have a lot of technology where we are recovering fertilizers, organic fertilizers from our waste streams, which you of course need in order to grow the crops. We see more and more greenhouse farming, sometimes vertical farming, so using, let's say, a closed area in order to effectively use water and nutrients to grow a high quality product. Protein, we see a transition to the vegan part where all kind of natural products, organic products are being used as an alternative for protein, for meat. Also here we are involved in a number of initiatives where, for example, insects are being breeded as an alternative protein, and where we take care of the whole water as well as treatment process of these kind of alternative proteins. Large-scale land-based fish farming is going to replace the fish farming at sea level. Yeah, and a land-based fish farm can only function if there is sufficient oxygen and clean water. So also here you see that water and food security as well as energy are fully interlinked, but water is at the heart. And this is where us as a group and where Saur with their mission Water is really trying to help our clients to improve the value of water and help them solving their water, energy and food challenges.
Thank you very much for your time. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you very much and good luck.